Hmm.
Okay, they need to do a little UX work.
Oh, good.
I couldn't find the checkbox to agree to the terms and conditions.
Gotcha.
I guess everybody else is coming in too.
Slowly, I was trying to look for you guys. I'm not sure where everybody else is, actually.
I'm telling Marcia to look for the checkbox.
Good idea.
So is the chat part of the stream that goes out?
I don't know. I'm not sure. I think not.
That would be a good thing to find out.
Yeah. Well, why don't we chat a little bit and find out?
Okay. I was going to say Lycos is going to be the clear winner here. All the smart money's on Lycos.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Lycos is going to kick everybody's butt.
Yeah, 6 years ago. It's amazing, isn't it?
Is that 6?
Yeah.
Really?
I think so.
Recent? Oh my God. Really? Oh, wow. That's crazy.
So I ran into this effect when I was in grad school in history.
Yeah.
Is that the informal nomenclature for history is it's change over time, the record of change over time.
Mm-hmm.
And what I found out was that, okay, if that's the equation, then the more change there is, the less time you have to cover before you call it history.
Hmm.
And I discovered that there's also an unspoken universal constant of like 50 to 75 years,
Mm-hmm.
or else they just consider it journalism.
Martha's not seeing the checkbox somehow.
Oh.
Does she have to scroll down or what?
Marcia's now offline.
And Eugene is not seeing the invitation again.
So this is a shakedown cruise.
Yeah, it is.
So would this show up? How do we know where this is showing up?
If you go back to Google Plus, you should see it there.
Okay. Oh, geez.
Yeah, that's going to be good for recording.
Yeah. Thank you, Gambit.
All right, I'm going to try inviting Eugene again.
So if I try to watch myself on G+, while we're in the Hangout, is the world going to crash?
Very likely.
Okay.
Then you can try it. It should be all right.
Well, let's give it a shot. That's insane. I'm watching myself on G+ right now.
Isn't that kind of cool?
It's.
And look, we have Eugene.
Hey. So are we actually live right now?
Yes, if you go back to G+, you will see us there. I think you have to click on the play arrow in it. How does it work for you, Mark?
You'll see a box in your G+ stream with a little play icon in the middle, and just click that.
So,
wow.
So this is a public stream. So anybody who notices this can play it, but they can't jump into the Hangout.
Anybody who notices it in our circles, right?
I'm not so sure because it's a public stream. I think anyone who notices it on Google+.
Understood.
Yeah. So it's basically a broadcast. It goes really, really wide, far and wide, and it gets recorded. So those are the two features.
Cool. Well, I'll watch what I say then.
Yeah, exactly.
Just see that you do. Watch yourself, Eugene.
Yeah, you're not going to be the problem here.
Yeah, right. That was my concern when I was getting this whole group together. I was like, yeah, but Eugene, I don't know. He's trouble.
So Marcia still can't figure out how to get the chat window up unless I initiate.
Couldn't find pop-up. What pop-up?
All right, so the state of the art of multi-party free video conferencing is weak.
I say it's just, finding your way around a bit, sure. What's the little dog face?
Little dog face.
Oh, look.
What do you have? Oh, how did you get a dog?
So, up on that line where it says chat, screen share, YouTube, and docs. Yes. Oh, look. I think it's whoever's talking. No,
put your face. There you go.
There we go. That's outstanding.
Look, I'm a cat now.
Well, why wouldn't you spend value engineering time to build this feature? That's outstanding.
And you have a hail. Oh, cool. Why am I not getting more?
Sweet.
Oh, well, there we go. Now it's real.
Oh, nice. Wow.
Yeah, this is much more useful than the green screen.
Okay, so now I'm a little jealous. How did you switch the halo? How are you switching it?
You just keep clicking.
Ah.
Yeah. You have to cycle through all of them, which is ridiculous for a UI, but there we are. And you turn it off, and then you go to the next one. This one makes a lot more sense for me.
There we go. Yes. I don't know. I kind of like the friendly dog face. It's
like the puppies.
It's doing spatial recognition on my head right now and resizing the dog face as I move.
It looks like it's reading your pulse, and it's actually growing it with every pulse so that Your head is actually microscopically larger because of your pulse, and it detects all of that and reframes the puppy just right.
Good Lord, I didn't know I had such an intense camera on this laptop. That's amazing.
I'm so glad this is being recorded for everyone to be able to watch and learn from.
I'm agreeing with you here. So Marcia hasn't written me back about which email is best. Maybe I invited her wrong email. I don't know. I'm trying to.
Well, here, let me do what I did before. I'm going to send her that second. I'm just going to copy and paste that second link you sent me.
And I'm just sending her another invite to a different. I have her twice in my circle somehow, so there's probably two different emails, and it depends how she's logged in to get there. And
right.
Google Plus is not that elegant about consolidating accounts. I have several people repeated.
Yeah.
So I wonder if...
There we go.
There we go.
I heard a noise. I heard a noise like an approaching video person party thing.
Oh, I don't have that. You know, on my computer at work, I've got an extension installed in Chrome so that I can share Plus items out to Twitter. I don't have that installed here. I was wondering if I could tweet the fact that we're hanging out.
So, Marcia, we see you. Do you hear us?
I can hear you now. That's exciting.
Yay, excellent. And then from the control booth here, I can click on one of us, and as long as I've clicked on that person, I think that person stays on screen the whole time.
Oh, so you can set someone to be kind of the...
center of attention or something. Or the host or something like that. And then if I click on you again, it lets go of that, and now it goes by noise.
I see. Okay.
Like that.
So this is going out now. This is recorded, right?
This is it's being recorded and it's being broadcast, and we should say something we want to be remembered for.
Well, prior to doing that, I would love to be able to see you. I'm not seeing you yet, so I'm just going to smile and wave and hope that somebody else is on the screen.
Oh, so you don't see any of us?
I don't yet, but I'm hoping that I will soon. Everything it says it's on, but it's just not showing any of you. So.
All right. We're here smiling back at you.
Good.
You're coming through 5x5 here. I mean...
That's great. I'm not worried about it. I'm just telling you that I don't see you quite yet. So here's your chance to make faces at me.
Well, you missed the dog face and cat face. And...
There's one of the little buttons above the screen. You see the little
I see the dog. You're right, but I just don't see you all.
If you click on the dog, it overlays a little dog face and ears over your head and then synchronizes it to your motions. So we were actually playing with that a little earlier, just in the general theme of raising the level of conversation.
Wow, I saw Mark for like half a second. That was wild.
Oh, I probably moved.
Yeah.
Do you have a?
All right, well, we'll figure this out.
Good. So, Mark, you want to take us into a conversation about the book?
Sure. So let's just go with a number of years ago now to save us all a little pain. We all got together in a conference room near Dulles Airport in Washington, D.C., and talked with some folks from the intelligence community for about a day and a half about, at that point we didn't even have, we couldn't even call it 2.0 or social media. It was blogs and wikis, I think, was on the invite. And in distilling down what we talked about during that day and a half, I really came to the conclusion of what we were talking about was conversations. Conversations in the form for that agency in terms of creating a stream of intelligence and not a finished product that wasn't a conversation. Conversations in terms of the collaborative writing of wikis, collaborative efforts in terms of writing and then commenting that were blogs, but it all came back to the idea of conversations. And the more I thought about it, the more it made sense to me in terms of we've all done that thing where we go to a conference and we're like, wow, this session was weak and this one was okay. but I ran into that person in the hallway, or I met that person in the bar, and we talked for about 2 hours, and that conversation alone made it worth the trip. And so then I started looking at some research and some things that I'd already been looking at, like the idea of the World Cafe, and how things like the tragedy and the cornucopia of the commons played into this idea of conversations. And I used that in my thinking going forward from that meeting. And now we're here a number of years later, and we've got all this incredible technology around us now that was, 5 or 6 years ago would have been science fiction. And I wanted to come back to the question of, my thesis is the underlying dynamic is still human. We're still just creating new ways that we can have conversations. And this is a great example. We're all having a conversation here in this Hangout that's being broadcast out live to G+ or to YouTube or both, where it can spawn other conversations. And the ripples of this can spread. And so what I wanted to do is maybe update this little piece of work that I had done 6 years ago to kind of encapsulate that lesson and bring it forward and get everybody to kind of reflect on what we've seen happen over the past number of years, see if people agree with me that what we're really doing is adding things like scale and speed to a really powerful human dynamic that's been around for a long, long time, and then open it up to some other contributors to kick in not just narrative text on the power of this dynamic, but also images that they feel are illustrative. And I really want that to happen because I believe in the power of I'm a big fan of Scott McCloud, understanding comics and the combination of narrative and image. It's age-old cave paintings, right? And I kind of wanted to keep that combination going and make it, in essence, one of the things I've been thinking of as a gateway drug for people to understand the power of social media. And the power of it isn't the technology. The power of it is the fact that here are 3 other people who I rarely, if ever, get to see in person, but I'm sitting here in my dining room chatting with, having this conversation with. The conversation dynamic is human. The technology lends us scale and speed that we otherwise wouldn't have. And so that's kind of where I started this and kind of my thinking for going forward. So I hope that makes sense to somebody, anybody. I mean, 1 out of 3, I'm going to count it at a winner. So in baseball, if you hit the ball 1 out of, if you're hitting it 1 out of 3 times, you're going to go in the Hall of Fame. So how does that sound?
I think this is the point at which the 3 of us are supposed to unmask and reveal that we are actually cyborg automatons.
Wow.
You too, Jerry?
Yeah,
you too?
yeah. I've had myself replaced.
I never saw that coming.
So I'm curious, Mark. I think it's it's so interesting the way you frame up what you're interested in talking about and frame up this conversation in particular. And you talk about just sort of the human dynamics and the importance of a conversation, which I think I definitely agree. It boils down to that. Mm-hmm. And the thing that brought us together and the thing that instigated this book that you put together was, as you said, it was this meeting at with people from the CIA. Mm-hmm. And that seems to me to be sort of an unlikely starting point, to talk about this recognition of the importance of conversation and mm-hmm. human dynamics. I'm wondering, what was it about that gathering that got you thinking about this stuff? That made you realize that this was important enough that you wanted to sit down and create this first book?
Sure. So I think what really got me there was that having worked, I worked in the Pentagon for about 5 years, and there are a lot of brilliant, hardworking people there. People don't realize it, but D.C. as a metro area has one of the highest, if not the highest per capita rate of advanced degrees of anywhere in the country, largely due to the fact that the military will pay you to go to school. Awful lot of smart people working in an awful lot of stovepipes. Same thing with the intelligence community. And if we remember, there were a couple really notable failures in the intelligence community, and largely due to the fact that the right people weren't having the right conversations at the right time. We had everything we needed to know in our hands, and we failed to make use of it. And so that dynamic really drew my attention. And then, so when we were putting on this thing, I went to my my bosses at Booz Allen, and I said, I don't want to have these incredibly bright people coming in to talk to this client for a day and a half and us miss out on this. So is it okay if I go to the client and ask them to have 2 seats in the room for Booz Allen people? And they said yes. And so I went to Jeff and I said, Jeff, can I have a couple Booz Allen people in the room? And he said, sure, no problem. And it was like pulling teeth to get people in there. And to me,
convince somebody to show up.
Yeah, and I'm not condemning Booz Allen. They're some of the hardest working, smartest people I know. But it's kind of that consultant culture where I didn't have a B number to give people. I didn't have anything to bill it against. It was time that we'd have to eat. And so after it ended, I went back and I said, look, I took copious notes. I'm not going to let this just pass into ether. I'm going to figure out some way to collect my thoughts and disseminate it. And at Booz Allen, you always think in terms of the slide deck. And so I thought, the last thing I really want to do is constrain this to something like my limited ability with PowerPoint. And I always believe that you never really know how to use the tool until you have to do something with it. You can't just sit there and look at it and go, I understand you. And so I had wanted to explore the self-publishing market that was coming on the scene at the time, like Blurb and Lulu. And so I chose Blurb, and I thought, well, I'll pick the smallest book they do, which is a 40-page book, 20 facing pages, and I'll do that. And it turned out to be really hard to construct this narrative with images around all my notes that we had just talked about. And I got some really different reactions when I handed 4 people the book. 50% of the reaction was incredibly positive, we need to print hundreds, and 50% of the reaction was, get this off the web right now and we need to call the lawyers and talk to them. And this is after I'd gotten the client approval to blog and write about this.
Wow.
And so to the anthropologist in me, that kind of reaffirmed the power of the artifact. The power to take this kind of set of ephemeral notes and make it a physical reality for people in a way that PowerPoint doesn't necessarily do. And that was really interesting. So it started from this idea that, wow, the intelligence community is having this discussion, and that's incredibly important, to the fact that then I was drawn to the fact that Booz Allen was missing out on this as a conversation. I didn't want that to happen. So that's kind of what drew me to the topic, and then what spurred me to create the book. The first one, which was internally released to Booz Allen people only, at the lawyer's request. So I hope that gets to what you were asking, Eugene. Yeah.
Well, I'm curious. What do you think? What do you think was the story that? I mean, so clearly part of that reaction from some of your colleagues, that 50% who are like, call the lawyers immediately, was just about the fact that you wrote about it, right? Do you think there was a reaction to something that you said in the book that they thought was something that was disruptive or dangerous?
Well, I think it's 2 things. One, I think it was the physical reality of the book, because I ordered 4 copies and I gave 4 copies out, and I think when they saw the book, they weren't familiar with the ability to self-publish, and their reaction was based on old models of publishing about, wow, who published this? Where did this come from? How did you do this? And then I said, well, I used a web service. No, it's up on the web. You got to get it down immediately. I said, no, nobody else can see it but me. And so I think there was this real lack of understanding about how the technology worked that caused a big reaction. And then, at Booz Allen, Casual Friday means you can not wear your tie. And so I will admit to having a certain more irreverent tone, let's say, than typical Booz Allen corporate culture liked at the time. And so maybe it was a combination. I think really it was the physical reality of the book and not understanding how the model behind it worked, and then kind of the tone, which they saw me, writing somewhat irreverently about an interaction with a client, and that kind of sent their sensors up. So.
Probably not just any client in that particular case. I've had the instance of a number of times when I've worked with organizations and it's the matter of saying, oh, we can't tell anybody that we're working with this particular organization that we're talking about in this particular case, even if that particular organization is with you saying this is what we did and this is who we did it with.
Sure.
And so I think that's a big issue. When the chapter of my last book came out with a very large story about this particular organization, and they said, this is the first time the story's ever been published in a book that's gone through the traditional process. And I just was stunned because it's such an amazing story. And so I finally, at some point, asked the question, why is that? And they said, well, no one has ever had the courage to ask us before. Not that we would have an issue with it. We think it's a great story. We're happy to share it. It took a lot of going through the process to get it to happen. But it's just a matter of saying that, organizations, especially secret organizations, people are very leery of sharing anything about and what that might mean and what the ramifications are. And I think it just cascades from there.
Well, in Booz Allen, we actually never referred to them as the CIA. They were the USGC, the United States government client. And, of course, when you substitute one acronym for another, it's pretty clear who you're talking about. But nothing in any emails or communications talked about CIA. It talked about the USGC. Mm-hmm. And what was interesting to me, Marcia, about that was that kind of reactive stance that you're talking about was really present external to the CIA, and it wasn't present in the people in the room. Mm. And that, to me, set off another signal that they're already thinking differently about themselves. Do we need to think differently about them or change how we operate with them, right?
Yeah, they were pretty open to all the stuff we ended up talking about, and their questions were really good. And as we know now from history, a lot of interesting things happened that came out of that. I don't know necessarily of that meeting, but certainly, those groups of people.
Jerry, I have the numbers behind what came out from directly in relationship to that meeting. It's pretty remarkable.
Cool. Awesome.
You may remember that at the beginning, it may be too long ago, but my moleskin, I sat there and I just asked a series of questions. I wanted to understand who was in the room. So I asked questions like, how many of you are blogging? How many of you have ever written or edited a wiki? Just simple questions like that. I think it was very helpful for all of us in the front of the room just to get a sense as to who was there. Mm-hmm. And I wrote that, and it must have been the beginning of one moleskin because I happened to be in that room again the following year, and with a mostly similar audience. And I asked the questions again. And so in this case, and I don't have it here with me today, but I have the numbers. And so the first time, you may recall, there was almost no hands that went up. It was 10, 15 people and a room full of 250 people. Mm-hmm. Hands went up at all. And the next year, it was 80, 90, sometimes almost 100%.
Wow.
Across the board, almost every single question, every single recommendation we had, they took. And one of the participants said very candidly, "Why are you so shocked?" And and one of the participants said, "Why are you so shocked?" And I said, "Well, I've never had a client that everybody took it so seriously. And in this case, they said, we brought in the best and the brightest. Of course we took it seriously." It was absolutely amazing.
Well, and now, Jerry, that discussion still goes on in the form of a conference. That little chat's grown into a conference, right? And I was there 2-3 years ago, and we're talking 400, 500, 600 people, and I'm standing next to Lewis Shepard, who used to be in the community, and it's a Q&A session of this one presentation. And this lady raised her hand, and she got up and said, "Hi, my name's so-and-so. I'm with the NSA, and here's my question." And Lewis nudged me, and he goes, "Man, I worked in the community for like 20 years, and I could never have dreamed of standing up at a conference and saying, 'Hi, I'm with the NSA.'" I mean, that was a foreign concept. And so I think they're still changing and growing as a community. What's interesting is now I work at the client that I support is the DoD Cybercrime Center, and I support the training academy portion of that. So we train people who repel cyber attacks on a daily basis.
I thought you were saying rappel, like climbing down the side of a building, and I was waiting for somebody to show up through the window right here.
Doesn't mean they're not on the roof, Jerry.
Nice.
It means we haven't given the go sign yet.
Just because I'm more paranoid doesn't mean there's nobody following me.
Exactly. Well, yeah, especially if you look at the list of the top 3 countries that try to hack us on a daily basis, one of them is who we'd consider a very close friend. So it's an interesting mix out there in cyberspace. But it's not the same as the intelligence community, but again, it's a community that is a little closed down at the moment, and we're hoping to open it up and grow its conversation, if you will, a little bit more. So yeah, I think it's amazing how that group of folks in that room really took off and ran with it.
Even when we met them for the first time, I mean, it was a remarkable experience for me looking back. And I mean, I don't know, did any of you guys, I mean, obviously not Mark, but did any of you have second thoughts of even participating because it was a CIA workshop?
Yes.
Yeah. Remember Dave?
I went in I was not most skeptical, but leery of the fear as to what we were really being asked to do, or what were they really trying to get at, and people who I would say have become quite good friends over the years since then. And to look back, it becomes fairly comical to think just some of the preconceived notions or stereotypes that I had at the time. And I think it was actually Dave Weinberger's, had actually blogged about it. "This is what I'm about to do. I can't believe I'm doing this. It goes against every political bone of my body, but I'm going to do it anyway because if not me, who?"
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, I can.
I remember that. That number of years ago, getting the group of you guys plus Jay and David and Clay for the first day in the room and I remember it was a little starstruck for me, and I remember I even got an email from Tim O'Reilly, and I remember it showing up in my inbox and it said tim@o'reilly.com, and I said, "You got to be kidding me." And I wish he'd have made it. That would have been an interesting discussion. But I remember going to David Weinberger and saying, "You're going to blog about this. I know." And I said, I don't want to stop you. I just want to ask for maybe some thoughts before you go. And he was actually really, really kind about it. And the big blog post that he did afterwards, I think I looked at 2 different drafts before we got down to the last draft that actually went out on the blog. And I think the only thing he left in on that was how impressed he was with the analyst core of the agency, and now he just wished they'd tell the operational side not to torture people.
Well, it was pretty, I mean, my only prior government experience had been, working with government had been awful. And so on multiple levels I had some reluctance. And it was funny too, like you talk about the power of conversation. I mean, one of the things that had happened early when I started, working in this field was that I started meeting people from different government agencies who were interested in, how you be more collaborative. And I was having separate conversations with each of these people, all of them whom were in different agencies within the government. And at one point, I said to them, you know, you're all hanging out there in D.C. together, and you're calling me here out in San Francisco.
Yep.
Why don't you guys, I'll connect all of you guys, and you should just go out and have a beer together and talk amongst yourselves. And people were like horrified at even the suggestion of it. Like they thought I was speaking in a completely different language. So I was really, I had this strong sort of perception, biases around, government and, how it worked and, the culture there and stuff. And I really have to say that, like even today when I think about organizations I've worked with and groups that I've spoken with and the different cultures that I've experienced, I'm lucky in that I get to work with a lot of social change organizations. And to this day, I'm not sure if I can think of a group of people who were as motivated to be successful at doing this as the people in that room. And it was really humanizing for me to see people from the CIA who were like that and who were authentic and who just deeply cared about what they were doing and why they were doing that. So it was great from that standpoint.
I think that's one of my main lessons that I've taken away from working for so many years with DoD is that we talk about the enterprise and the corporate culture and how to change it and how to do this and that. And at the end of the day, our bottom line is, do people come home safe? And I think that's, I think the folks in the room kind of maybe hit it a little bit, but I think everybody in the intelligence community felt keenly the failures that they had and knew that they had to change. Saw what happened when they failed. I mean, so if you guys fail, what you get a bad quarterly report.
Mm-hmm.
You have another 3 months to bring up sales, whatever. You don't have the conversations you need to have in the intelligence community, and 19 guys get to go to Embry-Riddle for how to fly an airplane training, and are able to pull off something like 9/11. That's, I think, not to get hokey and recruiting poster on people, but if you look at the bottom line that you have in your organization, that's a pretty powerful one.
Yeah, Jeff has a line, and I'm going to mess up the first half of it, but I'll pull it out, and to me that would be definitely something we would include in this process, is in his community, share too little and people die, and share too much and people die.
Mm-hmm.
That really the question becomes is what do we need to do to inform ourselves so we know what the right balance is, what the right people are, the right information at the right time. And that's, I would say my interest even in continuing this project or this process is really that the shape of that organization that year, so many years ago, is one that I see more and more organizations in today. Not on the will people die perspective, but like you just said, Mark, people in that position at that time knew so clearly they had to change. There wasn't a choice here. This wasn't something, oh, let's do that stuff. Let's collaborate or have a beer together. Let's do that because it's neato. They did it because they knew they had no choice. They had to make a change. And so increasingly more organizations are realizing they have to make a change and they have to do something differently and have these conversations and work in a different way, and they have to do that now. And so I think that if anything, this is the right time to bring some of the lessons forward, to move the conversation down the field, and to be able to really share with a far wider berth of organizations who know that this change is required. What this change is really the question, but that they at least are at the point of this isn't nice to have, this is must have.
That was also partly the irony or the paradox or the tension about this particular meeting was that here were clearly some of the people who are and need to often be the most secretive possible, and here was also a group of people who really needed to share, and if they didn't share, bad things were going to happen. So there's this added pressure to it that I think doesn't show up in corporations in different ways for the reasons Mark just said and plenty of other reasons. But there was a kind of a precious pressure in the room that maybe added energy, the kind of attentive energy that Eugene was talking about, and that propelled the kinds of change that happened even just a year later that Marcia was talking about. So, the setting it plays a huge role here.
Well, I think, I'm struck by, we've got this huge consumerization of IT effect, and how, the product development cycle is reversed now. It doesn't come from government to corporations to consumer. It flows consumer to corporations to government. And that's in terms of, kind of software features. But I think what Marcia's getting at is maybe in this instance, we can take a lesson that the government has to learn. We have no choice. There are bad people out there looking to do bad things to us. And I don't want to go all Jack Nicholson, but somebody's got to be out there looking for them. And that kind of...
We're not ready for this.
Huh?
We're not ready for this.
No, right? But so taking people who've already learned that lesson because of the hard bottom line they have can be extrapolated into corporate culture, can be, or other cultures writ large, right? That maybe you don't face this kind of bottom line on a daily basis, but your company does as an entity, right? There is no company that can't be put out of business by somebody else.
I think that's a really important framing.
Yeah.
And I think what's also interesting, and it's sort of the other irony to build off the one that Jerry noted, is that this thing that people are trying to figure out, that CIO is trying to figure out at that point, that so many other organizations are trying to figure out right now, ultimately goes back to what you brought up at the very beginning, Mark, which is sort of it's a return to humanness. Mm-hmm. And what we found just over the past 100 years of organizations and how they've evolved, and I mean bureaucracies are much older than that, is that the structures that we've put into place are fundamentally dehumanizing. And it's almost like we have to remember, conversations matter. They're important. They're critical to what we're doing. And I remember the one thing that I said. It was a scary moment for me at that meeting because people were so mad at me. It seemed was when I had just thrown the word play out, and I'd used it not as a way of saying what you guys are doing is frivolous, but I was talking about the importance of play. And I remember how people in the audience just literally froze up when I said that word, and people were really angry about even insinuating that play would be something that people in the CIA should be doing. And I think that's really kind of, I don't think that's limited to the CIA. I think we see that in a lot of organizations, and it's troubling to me, when we think about humanization.
So you don't get more German than my background, right? I mean, I've got names like Ehlert and Rettig, back in there. I'm on the verge of invading Poland right now.
I definitely don't get more German than you, Mark.
I'm just holding back, right? But Germans actually have a word called Spielraum, which is play. But it's not play in the sense of with a ball or a bat. It's in when you're fixing your bicycle, you're putting the tire back on, you don't tighten the thing down so tight that it won't spin. You leave some room for it to play, right? And I think our organizational cultures, you're exactly right, Eugene, that the dehumanizing effect of industrial age management concepts, words like human resources, clearly of asset sheets of places like Microsoft that just account for furniture and buildings, but not for the engineers who create the products, right? Those all tie together to do exactly what you're talking about, which is gloss over, if you will, ignore the fact that organizations, not like Citizens versus United, their organizations aren't people, but like Soylent Green, they're made of people, right? And I think that's a big piece to remember. That's a great point.
Yeah, I do actually remember, Eugene, now that you mention it, the play thing, and just even on the peripheral of my thoughts, that somebody who was in that room, who I only really met in person a couple of years later, he brought up something that he said in that meeting, which was, we're an organization, when we talk about organizations that have locks on their doors, sort of metaphorically, he said, we really have locks.
Mm.
And Mark, as you're giving that example of the nuts and the bolts, and you need to have a little bit of play in this system, he was saying, no, 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 no. Even that kind of play, no, 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 you don't have. So.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I had a guy come up to me at the end of the conference, and he's like, "I really enjoyed, what you said. Let's keep in touch." And I said, "Great. Do you have a card?" And he said, "No, I don't exist." And I laughed because I thought he was joking, and he didn't laugh at all. So then I gave him my card, and I said, "Okay, well, I guess you will contact me then."
That's right.
And a number who did give out cards too for these made-up organizations, and they who they work with, and then just every once in a while I'll find one of those old business cards, and I think to myself, oh yeah, that was one of those organizations.
Mm.
So
that picture, we have a picture of all of us, right, standing with our heads. I mean, if anybody remembers the lead up to that picture of them giving us the rules that we could take pictures, but we couldn't see anybody's faces. We could,
right.
And just it was so interesting.
Yeah.
A process check, Mark. We've been talking quite a while, and once we got over the dog and the kitten and the halo thing, and Marsha joined us, we've had a good conversation. We don't have Jay in our conversation, and there's other people we want to invite in. So shall we declare this conversation a success and figure out what to do next?
I think your hosting skills are coming through loud and clear, Jerry. I think yes. I think this has been a success from the technical standpoint, and from getting the idea down. That I'm really in touch with how this could be a powerful way to have a series of conversations about a book about conversations as we go forward with it. Not to get too meta there, but I'm digging this. And I think we get Jay in, and then maybe what we do is as we work through and solidify the list of people that we'd like to contribute to the work, maybe one or two at a time we invite them in to participate in this.
And we can also get a crew in to shoot the making of the book, about the conversation, about the movie, about the event.
I haven't even, I'm going to start talking to some game designers I know to build the game about building the conversation about the book. Yeah.
Project build with the whole bucket, yeah.
Yeah, I think you just leveled up by saying that, Mark.
It's going to be a recursion, the next adventure. Yeah.
See, you've already got the branding down.
No, there's a new exhibition that just opened up here at the American Art Museum, the Smithsonian American Art Museum. It's the art of video games.
Uh-huh.
And we were down there, so they're as always, they're deeply on my mind. So yeah.
I like it. You should totally create a game called Recursion, and it's the game within the game.
No.
No.
No. Now I'm thinking of.
This is another conversation.
Over and over again.
Yeah. Now, see, Jerry, you say you want to stop the conversation, but then you bring up topics like that.
I know. Okay. We're done.
All right. Okay. So out of this, we also hope that we will be getting together some basic construct as to what we might want to be thinking about to be writing for the book that we've written about from the conversations too.
Exactly. So we've got the Google Doc up there, and I know Eugene's kicked in some good comments. If people want to kick in, additional shaping, focusing comments on the central nugget here, the central narrative, the kernel, if you will, I think that's really going to be important to get the people we want to contribute, and then to keep their contributions vectoring along the same lines. So if you want to take a look at the document, please do, and love to have your thoughts on how we shape this as a question, right, for folks to be able to respond to.
Sounds groovy.
Sounds good.
And I guess I'll send out a doodle for the next one.
Great.
Let me just ask, since you're all here, what's a frequency that you guys think would be workable? I want to be respectful of your time as well.
Every other week for a couple of months.
Okay. That sounds good.
Kind of 4 calls, 5 calls over a couple months.
Yep.
And I will say, if in parallel we could be understanding what our assignment to be working on in terms of writing and pictures could be, then this can help us also illuminate the thinking that we're having there. So we could be doing really, not multitasking while we're talking, but to be able to be blending and doing both of those things during that, couple of months of time. I think that would be very helpful.
So I think between now and next call,
yeah,
maybe really take a look at the document and think about the central question that we're going to ask, or maybe it needs to be questions, and then also maybe think about the list of people that we want to ask to contribute.
An interesting format, this is just a suggestion, would be to have each of us pick an angle or a question that we like, and then we become the spark for that particular call.
Oh.
So we throw some ideas out, and then everybody else responds to them, and that becomes that piece of the document.
I like
that's
that.
one way of looking at it.
So then, because I should tell you one of the things I'm doing right now is I'm standing up about, 4 different systems, each of which would normally take about a year to stand up inside an organization. We're doing it we'll be done in 7 months.
Nice.
All the systems. So I'm very much in program management mode. So Jerry, I love the idea about we'll each be responsible for a question. The PM that's dominant in me right now says we need to go ahead and assign who's got the next question. My favorite thing has been when people say we, define the we, right? I mean,
I think mostly it means you, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I just want you to say it out loud, Jerry.
It's the projective we.
Gotcha. So, so assignments for y'all. Take a look at the document. Think about people we want to ask. Assignment for me. I'll think of a question that I, in particular, want to pose as part of the work for next time.
Cool.
And I'll also send out
I'm sorry. I wrote into the document, and I'm encouraging here as well, that instead of us having, building this giant list of people, that each of us think if we were to invite into this conversation 2 people, and only 2 people, each of us individually, that you think about who are the 2 people you would really want to be in that conversation. And we may have overlap, but we may not. And if we go, and then we may look at that and say, from a global perspective, we may need to add a few other people outside of those 2. But let's be very tight and very specific and thinking about, who would we as individuals like to hear from, and we would like to share those voices in the larger community.
Right. I call it the dinner party rule. You're throwing a dinner party. Who are the most interesting people you'd want to invite to be there? Right.
Sounds good. Break out the wine glasses behind you. Let's get cracking.
I'll just reach back here and yeah. But thank you all. This has been amazing, and I look forward to doing a lot more of these.
Thanks for organizing, Mark. It was fun. Good seeing you guys.
Thank you all.
Nice conversation. Right? All right. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.